Hi, I'm Chris Bisnett, CTO and co-founder here at Huntress, and I'm glad to be part of TechNadu's Humans in Cyber video interview series. So I'll start with a little background. For me, I was in the military. I did offensive cybersecurity for the intelligence community. I joined NSA as a contractor and did additional offensive cybersecurity stuff there. About 10 years ago, myself and some of the co-founders here at Huntress, Kyle Hanselman, John Farrell, we decided we would go and try to create a cybersecurity company that could do the defensive side, given what we understood about offense and how people did it, and all the things that came with that. Could we use that knowledge and understanding for defense and to prevent attackers and to identify them sooner and all of that? And so that's really kind of how Huntress was born. And so, yeah, we continue to do that for a lot of our partners and continue to push ahead. And let's see if we can answer a little bit of how we think about that and how we do that for you. So the first question: what's the first operational decision you tackle each day, from detection summaries to MDR and incident response? So for us, every day we're really looking at what is it that is the most important thing to our customers that day. A lot of times is there some new attack that's happening? Are we seeing a new trend? Are we seeing maybe there's a piece of software that's deployed largely across our customer base, and we're seeing that it has a vulnerability and attackers are exploiting that in the wild, right? Every day is really kind of unique and different. So we always start with just looking at, like, hey, what is the system identified today, given our existing detection rules, and kind of where do we go from there? Where should we start? And so, like I said, it's kind of unique every day, but because we have 4 million endpoints across thousands of customers, we get a really broad picture about what's kind of happening out in the wild, and we can use that to figure out where do we go next, and what do we do, and how do we do it. And that kind of really leads into the next question, which is, when an incident occurs, how do you transition from the initial alert to coordination with MDR and response teams? So assuming that something has happened, there is some sort of incident, the system has generated a signal and said, hey, there's this thing that either is known to be bad or is anomalous or is kind of suspicious. Our analysts will then dig in and really start to take it apart. They'll look at other things about that system and say, okay, what else is happening here? What other processes are running? What things were installed recently? What maybe user accounts have been created recently? And we do that through really creating these, kind of lower level, what we call behavioral detectors. And they allow us to pick out certain signals from all of the activity that's happening and say, hey, this is not necessarily bad, but it is something that if we're in an investigation, we want to know about, right? So some of the things I referenced would be like installing new software, adding a user to an administrators group, or creating a new group, or things like that. That are by themselves is not obviously malicious, but if I want to know, hey, what else is happening on this machine, I want to know that an attacker or that somebody new, maybe not an attacker, has just connected to this machine remotely using RDP and is running some process, right? I want to know that so I can go and investigate that. And that's really where, kind of our team digs in and tries to find that. They'll look at other machines within that organization, try to see if there's similar activity, try to trace maybe a user connected from one machine to another. So let's go look at that original machine, see what else is there. Does that have signals? Does that have other interesting activity? And try to paint the picture and really go back to what was the first thing that happened. And that's super valuable because, what we see often with maybe antivirus is it will block something over and over again on one machine. Something tries to run, it blocks it. Something tries to run, it blocks it. But the question you have to ask is, like, what's the thing that's running the thing that's being blocked, right? You got to go a step back to figure out what was the actual malicious thing. And maybe there's something else there that is continually spawning this process that's getting blocked. So kind of going a little bit more broad and trying to figure out what else has happened is really, where our team goes. In what ways does human judgment inside Huntress actually change the outcome of an intrusion or investigation? And this is one for us that we really believe in. A lot of companies have gone just really headfirst into AI, and they're saying, "Oh, AI is going to do everything. AI will find all this stuff. It will do all the investigation. It will solve all of that." And it's a great idea. In practice, what we have found is that it misses a lot. There's a lot of things that aren't considered. It's hard to figure out what context exists that you can pass to the AI and do all these kind of things. So having these humans who have reviewed similar types of incidents and similar types of attacks across many different systems, who are constantly learning and evolving. They're reading the news. They're learning from their peers. All of this kind of stuff helps them figure out what is interesting and what is not. What should they dig into, and what is just a one-off? Hey, send this report, and we're good. And so, like, having that human interaction is huge. It also helps us figure out when do we need to escalate to a customer. When do we need to call them and say, "Hey, we saw this thing and it looks to be really bad, and we need to take your systems offline right now before it gets even worse." Right? And that, you don't want to take your systems offline, but it's better to take them offline so that you can clean up an incident than it is to get ransomware and have them offline anyway. And now you have to go and restore from backups, and you have this, this whole issue. So for us, having that human in the loop allows us to really make good judgments, make those decisions, and get the best outcomes for our customers. In Huntress's daily defense activities, where does human context add the most value to automation? This is, again, a huge plus of having humans in the loop, where what we've always done really from the beginning is try to review the activities that our SOC analysts are doing and figure out what are the things that are super repetitive or very time consuming, and how do we feed that then back into the development teams to build out the automation and really reduce that need for effort from the humans, right? Because we always want them to figure out what's next. Don't spend your time always on this thing today. Let's figure out how to automate it. Let's have the system do it. And then you move on to the next thing, figure out the next thing. And so, like, that's hugely important, especially when you look at a service like Huntress, where we're not just firing off alerts to our customers saying, "Hey, we found a thing. You might be interesting. You should look into it." We're the people who have to consume those because it's fully managed. So our customers are expecting us to both identify the things that need to be looked at and look at them and figure out what needs to be done, and then tell our customers, once we've verified it's a true positive, and figured out what the remediation steps need to be. So where other platforms maybe are more focused on how do we generate more signals that we can send to our customers so that they feel like we're generating a lot of value. For us, the value is not in generating the signals, it's in really identifying the true positives. And so being able to automate more of that allows us to get to the true positives, investigate them, and get that value to our customers rather than just kind of firing alerts at them. How do you make sure your teams get the right balance of freedom, training, and structure to stay ahead of attackers? So our teams are really kind of split across what are the big activities that we need from a SOC. Some of it is analysis and triage, where we need our analysts to be looking at what are the things that flagged through a detector, and are they malicious or are they not, and going in and doing those investigations I talked about. We also have a team whose job is to figure out, in cases where maybe we missed something and ransomware hit, or there's this new attack technique that we'd never seen before, who digs in, figures out how the malware works, all that kind of stuff. That is super important. But you don't want an analyst whose job it is to continuously report and keep up with all these things to kind of get bogged down in some of that longer term research, more in-depth stuff, right? Because they need to keep analyzing, they need to keep sending reports. So we split that function, right? So we have a whole separate team whose job it is to understand what the attackers are doing, do that research, and then feed that back into the analyst team and back into the development team so we can automate more. And so the analysts understand what they're seeing the next time they see it. They have more details and more information. We also have a team whose job it is to go and figure out how do we need to adjust the product to fill this gap or that gap. So we do internal red teams that we call purple team, right? We're running kind of attack simulation. So we're trying to figure out what are attackers doing? How do we do that? And then what does the data that we captured look like? What did we identify? What did we miss? Are there things that we can adjust within the product to make that work better, right? There's all those kind of things. What's the most important habit or mindset you've built as a technologist and a founder? I think for us, and really for anybody who's looking to start a startup, what you should be thinking about is how can you stay agile, how can you move fast, and how can you stay close to the problem? You're going to need to be able to adjust, especially in cybersecurity. In other industries, it's a little bit easier because the problem isn't changing day by day. One of the examples I give is like, let's say you were going to create a startup and you wanted to build a spreadsheet product or a financial accounting product, right? That problem is not changing every day. The things that the users need to do are the same. They need to be able to fill in formulas and they need to be able to reconcile charges and all of that. That's their day. In cybersecurity, because there is actually humans and attackers on the other side who are incentivized to try and identify what it is that we as defenders are doing and do things differently and work around us and not be discovered, our job changes every day. And so if you are not agile and you're not staying really close to that problem as a company, as a founder, as an engineer or a SOC analyst, or it really all of the pieces, you're going to be working towards something that may not even be the thing that's most important today, right? There might have been a trend that happened for a few months, and by the time you kind of solve it or get to where you want to get to, you realize, oh, attackers aren't even doing this anymore. They're not doing this other thing, and so now we have to adjust. And so just staying agile and being willing to say, hey, we're going to take really small steps. We're not going to try to necessarily solve the problem all in one go, but we're going to try to figure out how can we get a little bit better? Can we get a little bit better? And then being willing to say, hey, that thing that we had worked on that we really enjoyed, it's not the thing anymore. We need to move on to this other thing and we need to iterate there. And that's hard for a lot of people. They kind of get into this thing, they get into a workflow and they kind of really feel like, oh, this thing I created, this is my baby and I need to keep going with this. And it's hard to then say, okay, that thing is no more. We need to go do this other thing. So just be willing to be agile and be wrong and change what it is that you're doing so that you can best follow where the attackers are going. So hopefully that was insightful into kind of how we approach security, how I'm kind of directing our teams to say, hey, think about this or do that. And yeah, thanks for having me on this interview series, and hope to see you all next time. Bye.